and welcome to Culture Talks. I'm here today with Dr. Anne Murphy, who's a reader in history at the Humanities Department, University of Hertfordshire. And I want to ask you, first of all, thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Can you tell us a bit more about just your background and how you came to be at University of Hertfordshire?
Yes, so when I left school, I went straight into banking. And I spent 12 years as an investment banker, trading derivatives, and eventually thought to myself, do I want to do this to retirement? And the answer that came back very strongly was, no, I don't. I hadn't been to university when I left school, so I thought, well, I'll go to university. I'll give myself a bit of time to think about what I want to do next. And I liked university so much, I decided that's what I wanted to do next.
Okay, sounds fascinating. So how does your kind of background in banking link in with the things you're interested in now?
Well, I thought initially when I left the city, I thought, well, I'm not interested in that anymore. It's something I want to move away from. And I went to study history and politics. Liked history much more, really, than I liked studying politics. And really fell in love with the 18th century. It's far enough back to feel very alien in some ways, but it's also close enough to be familiar. I also discovered that really was when financial markets took off. And almost against my better judgment, I found myself starting to read about 18th century financial markets. And I was fascinated with the way they were presented, because they were presented in a very dry, factual way, talking about the movements of prices rather than the actions of people. And that intrigued me. You know, where were all the people in the 18th century financial markets? And I guess that was the goal I set myself, to go and find the people and figure out what they did.
So is there any specific project you're working on at the moment?
So at the moment, I am working on the Bank of England. The Bank of England was established in 1694. It quickly became established as the primary financial institution, but very much attached to government. And it becomes huge very quickly. By the 1780s, it's employing over 300 people. It's the biggest white-collar organisation, definitely in Britain, probably in the world. And its records are amazing. It kept pretty much everything, so its archive is very full. And there's a wonderful report that was produced in the 1780s that says what the bank did in very, very great detail. And in particular, it interviewed all of the clerks and talked about their jobs and how they did their jobs. So I'm using that to reconstruct a day in the life of the Bank of England.
Okay, fascinating. So what are one of the most interesting details that you found in these records? Some highlights.
Yes, I think the most interesting details are the relationships between people and the way office politics was alive and well in the 18th century. There was a particular character, Mr. Vicary, who was in charge of one of the offices, and every other supervisor who came in to report to the committee said, all the men under my charge do very well. Mr. Vicary came in and said, I have told the men I am going to tell it all like it is. And he went on to list all of the faults with his men. But the inspectors did a very good job of going back and asking the men what they thought. And of course they listed all the faults with Mr. Vicary. And there's a nice set of arguments around who's right and who's wrong and who's behaving badly and who isn't. And in the end, Mr. Vicary gets sacked. Not quite then, but a few years later.
Okay. That's fascinating, and in a way shows how these kind of historic records can tell you so much more about some facts about human relationships, about social culture as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very important to understand that the world of finance really is about the world of relationships, wherever you go. And it's when we cut those relationships and those people out of our understanding of how finance operates that we start to make mistakes about what the risks are and how those risks might manifest.
So a lot of to learn there from from our contemporary situation. You think there are things we can draw from it?
Potentially,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
I think they are. I'm a little sceptical about the lessons of history, but I think potentially there are always things that we can learn from the historical record.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming in today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for listening. And to find out more, please go to our research pages, Hearts AC UK/research, and then you find all the information there under the theme Heritage, Cultures and Communities. Thank you, and see you soon.